Namaste. Welcome back or welcome to the Tower Yoga Podcast. I am your loving host, Kellee Williams, and it is almost June. The time of this recording, it's May 29th, I think, right? What's the day today? It's the 28th. But you'll notice if you're watching this that my attire is a sweatshirt and it's unusually chilly and rainy for this time of year. So we'll take it. I'm sipping on some tea. But yeah, it is June. And that means it's time for another theme of the month around the studio. This month, for the month of June, our theme is Chitta. Have you heard of that before? Citta. Chitta is a Sanskrit word often translated as the heart-mind field of consciousness. Not just the thinking mind, but the entire inner landscape through which we experience life itself. Thoughts, emotions, memories, conditioning, perception, identity, habitual reactions, which we've talked about a good deal here on the podcast as of late. The root word chit, C-I-T, means consciousness, to perceive or to know. And something that I've been reflecting on is how much these teachings emphasize the relationship between perception and reality. In the Yoga Sutras and other related yoga philosophy, Chitta is often described as the inner field through which life is interpreted. So, in other words, we don't only experience life directly as it is, we experience life through the condition of our inner landscape. Two people can move through the exact same experience and walk away with completely different interpretations because each person's chitta has been shaped differently by those things that I mentioned: memory, conditioning, relationships, fears, culture, and past experiences, and so on. So you'll be familiar if you've been a longtime listener or just listening lately with the word samskara for these accumulated impressions, which, if you remember, are the grooves or patterns that shape future thoughts, reactions, and behaviors. And over time, many of these patterns become automatic. They're like the autopilot. So sometimes we think we're freely responding to life when really we may be reenacting conditioning that's been quietly shaping us for years and years. It's one of those reasons why you might have heard before that it's our subconscious that's like really running the show from behind the scenes. And it's one of the reasons I find these teachings so relevant in general. And now, specifically now in modern life, it creates this enormous amount of mental and emotional input. There's so much that we're absorbing: notifications, comparisons, noise, performance, constant stimulation, endless options about who we should be, who we could be. And, whether we notice it or not, the chitta absorbs all of that, all of it. So one of the passages I've been reading about chitta describes chitta as sitting between the outer world and the inner light of awareness. I love that image, because to me, it suggests that the deeper awareness within us is not something we need to manufacture. It's something that we can become more available to when the inner landscape becomes less clouded. Not perfect, just clearer. Yogic texts like the sutras speaks about how related and repeated thoughts, environments, and experiences gradually shape our perception itself. What we repeatedly expose ourselves to really matters. What we normalize matters. The pace we live at matters. The conversations we engage in and participate in matter. Even the way that we speak to ourselves becomes part of the atmosphere of the chitta. And eventually, we stop seeing clearly and we start seeing predictably. And That's through habit, assumption, fear is a big one, projection, another big one, or, just inherited narratives, things that we've adopted as our own. What I appreciate about yoga, the practice of yoga, is that it offers tools for becoming more aware of those patterns. Like, why am I the way I am? Why do I do the things that I do? Why do I say the things I say? Like, what's really what's going on? What's up with that? Movement can become a way of listening instead of performing. Meditation can become less about stopping thoughts and really more about observing the mind with honesty, truthfulness, hopefully some grace and compassion too. Breath work can help regulate the nervous system enough for us to actually notice what's happening internally, and stillness, slowing down, which can feel uncomfortable at first, gives us space to recognize what has been unconsciously driving us, not to shame ourselves, but to see more clearly. Because from what I understand, clarification, so again, not perfection, but clarification is really at the heart of these teachings. Clear seeing. Clearer chitta doesn't mean we never feel grief or fear or anger, anxiety or confusion or any of those more difficult and heavier emotions. It simply means we become not so completely possessed by those states when they're with us. There's more witnessing and there's more discernment, more space between that stimulus and response or reaction. And I think that's part of what freedom means in yoga philosophy, not controlling life, but becoming less ruled by unconscious conditioning. So the invitation this month is simply curiosity. What is shaping your inner landscapes right now? What influences leave you feeling clear and grounded and connected? What creates more noise? What patterns genuinely feel true to you? And which ones may have been inherited or absorbed without examination? And what practices help you return to yourself? The light of awareness itself is never actually lost. It just becomes obscured. The practice is not about becoming someone new. It's about gently clearing the lens. So that is what I will leave you with. I think that's a pretty big bite to chew on. Thanks for listening so very much. And please let us know in the comments or around the studio what you think about this concept of chitta and anything else you want to share. All right. I thank you very much for your time, for your attention, and I look forward to hopefully practicing with you around the studio. If you aren't able to come in around the studio still, thank you for listening. And I'll just remind you that we do have a YouTube channel with some different classes on there that you can always practice for free with us. Okay. Until next time, thank you so much. Bye-bye.